The next one is do all the details in each paragraph belong to the topic sentence, identifying anything that seems redundant or out of place. My feedback to you there, again, I want to try to keep it simple here. You go into a lot of detail, and I do. I think it's almost like you could probably concentrate a little bit of that, and the piece would flow. It would not lose credibility. I don't think you would weaken your argument. Look, I'm 43. I've been in sales for over 20 years. Okay, so arguing stuff like that's kind of what I do in real life, right? And my personal experience with it is sometimes too much is too much, right? Don't over-explain yourself. State the facts, get to the bottom line, and move on. So, again, I don't know if that's perfect English composition feedback in a peer review. I'm just telling you as a reader, that's my opinion. Water break. Are all the ideas in the essay fully developed? Yes, they're very fully developed. That's my feedback. Am I left with any unanswered questions? No, I'm not. I don't have any questions. I was pretty clear on both sides of this argument. I have my own opinions. It was not changed by the paper, but yeah, no unanswered questions. um, does the essay progress logically and clearly from one part of the story to the next? Are there any places where ideas seem to jump around or lose focus? I don't think your paper loses focus. I think I lost focus. And maybe that's because I'm a touch ADD, and for all the reasons I stated earlier, that I like to get to the facts and get to a bottom line. So I lost a little focus. I had to go back and reread certain sections because there was just a lot of information for me personally to digest. It doesn't mean that it's not good information, and it doesn't mean that it's not well written, but I'm just trying to answer the questions. Logically, logic to me, I mean, it seems to make sense that 18-year-olds are going to get themselves in a lot more trouble than 21-year-olds when it comes to booze at college. I don't know, like that doesn't take a lot of insight to come up with that conclusion. So it makes a lot of logical sense to me, your paper. Do I have all the background information that I need to understand what the writer plans to discuss? I don't really know what that means. I don't have any background information on what you plan to discuss because I read your paper. So I don't really understand that question. Are there any specific terms that need to be defined or explained? Not for me personally. And I'm of average intelligence, so I think the average reader would do fine with this. I think I'm of the average intelligence. I'm certainly not way above it, and I hope I'm not way below it. Time will tell. Make a note of any questions you have. Mm, I don't have any notes, and I don't have any questions. Does the essay have a conclusion that brings closure by reiterating the thesis and main points? Yeah, I mean, you came to a conclusion. I happen to agree with you. That's always nice that we're coming from the same angle. But even if we weren't, I'd be fine with that because I try to respect everyone's opinion. That may not mean I agree with you, but I happen to agree with you. So I didn't see that you repeated the thesis, but that may be because what I think is the thesis is not. So that might be my fault, not yours. Based on the conclusion, I kind of feel like I already answered this. What is the essay about? Young kids drinking, college, 18-year-olds versus 21-year-olds, and the merits of lowering the drinking age. Um, Look back at your introduction. Do you reinforce the thesis in the conclusion? Um, I feel like some of these questions are mildly repetitive, but yeah, yeah, you reinforce it. You reinforce, yeah, I think you did do that. After reading this essay, why should the audience continue to care about these ideas? How do they fit into the big picture? Um, I don't know how to answer that. Again, why should we care? Because they're college age kids and we should take an interest in our youth. Probably a good idea to do that. Um, how they fit into my life and the world. My son is 5 in September. I don't have any college age kids. I don't know. I don't want to get broadsided by an 18-year-old driving like 100 miles an hour on 470 one night and have my whole family die. So that's probably how it fits into my life. Hopefully that's not too graphic, just being honest. Um, is the conclusion maintain the right tone of voice for the essay? Absolutely. I think your tone's great. Um, it's very like academic. I think you're probably really smart. That would be my guess. I've never met you. I've never heard you speak. My guess is you're a very intelligent young person. After reading this paper, again, I want to hear more of like your voice though, right? There's a lot of quotes and whatnot. I'd love to hear more about Adrian. And again, um, you know, that's just my takeaway. Is the essay pleasurable to read? It was. I think it's pleasurable. It wasn't painful to read. So yeah, I think that's good. Um, does the writer use abstract or concrete language? I don't have an issue with the language that you used. I've been accused of speaking in an abstract fashion. I'm an Italian from New York. We do that. That's more of a cultural thing. But so uh, I find your language perfectly fine. The You did include sources. You included a lot of sources. We talked about that earlier. I think you're good there. As far as they're credible, I definitely got the feeling that De Jong was more credible uh, than Mary Carey. Um, she seemed to talk, kind of speak in more hyperbole, if you will, in some instances. You know, um, so anyway, but I'm sure. I mean, look, she wrote speeches for a past president, right? So I'm sure she's at least somewhat credible. Um, I think it definitely supports the quotes you use and the sources you use. Quote, so rather support both sides of both arguments. So I think I don't know. I wouldn't know where to tell you to go different there. So I think you're good. And then the last one is the essay properly formatted in text citation, margins, works cited. The one thing that did jump out at me, let me just scroll down and take a look at it so I'm not speaking out of turn. So I want to make sure it wasn't formatted wrong on my end. I think something's wrong with your works cited. The spacing there seems to be off. Maybe that's just what my Word file is doing to the file as I downloaded it, but something looks off there in the spacing. Um, the other thing too is, again, I'm probably not the best person on this, but I almost want to say, um, because you're referring back to some of the, you may want to look at how to do some of the citing with the online stuff. I don't know that you're supposed to use the whole length the way you have it there with just it's like super duper long, and I could be wrong about that. Maybe I've been doing it wrong. That's the only feedback I have on that. I think I'm done. Um, I hope you have found this useful. I've tried to answer all the questions. Like I'm up to 18, 19 minutes. So I don't know how much longer to go on that, but again, I hope my feedback's useful. If you have any questions, definitely give me an email at my student email address, and I'd be happy to expand or further clarify any of the stuff I've kind of shared with you here. Hope you have a wonderful evening and a highly productive week. Have a great night, Adrian. Thanks, man.